Now it's a four-way race. Communist-backed French presidential candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon attracting tens of thousands to a dockside rally in Marseille on Sunday. This as the polls put the far-left standard-bearer even, or sometimes even ahead of scandal-plagued conservative candidate François Fillon. With less than 2 weeks till the first round, we'll see why socialists seem to be deserting their nominee in favor of Mélenchon, and how, with four very different candidates all in with a shot of making the May 7th runoff, what Mélenchon, whose movement dubs itself Insurgent France, has over the far right's Marine Le Pen or independent centrist Emmanuel Macron. Who's the true insurgent in this race? How much is about protest? How much is about policy? What is the issue and the constituency that will swing a French presidential election race that, depending on the winner, could reshape, dare we say, Europe's destiny? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at that four-way race with Sophie Rouser, who is campaigning for Jean-Luc Mélenchon, normally in Brussels. Glad to see you in our studios.
Me too. Good evening.
Insurgent France, is that the right way of
Could be one way of translating.
France insoumise is the wording
yes.
in French.
Maybe something more accurate would be to speak about unbowed France.
Okay. With us as well, Paul Bertrand of the youth wing of the conservative François Fillon's campaign. Good evening. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome back as well to Bruno Cotresse of the research wing of the French Political Science Institute Sciences Po, Cevipof. We'll be talking more about how you're measuring which way a fickle electorate is going as we head into the home stretch.
Good evening.
And the outsider's eye today is Sudhir Hazarizing. He teaches politics at Oxford University.
Hello.
Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
The France 24 debate. By the way, the author of How the French Think. And I'll be interested to know how that's evolved as you've watched this campaign to head towards that first round. The France 24 debate on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. How far will he go? French tabloid newspaper Le Parisien's front page follows that huge rally in Marseille where the 65-year-old Mélenchon, a former socialist aligned with the likes of Greece's far-left Syriza party, gave a nod to the Mediterranean port city's ancient Greek founders, as Catherine Nicholson reports.
In addition to the phi symbol of wisdom that I brought to this presidential campaign, I carry also this olive branch. From now on, may it be our emblem, for it represents the tree of the Mediterranean.
All right, and Catherine Nicholson reporting there from Marseille on Jean-Luc Mélenchon and those who turned out on Sunday.
Marseille is the oldest city in France, founded in 600 BC by Greek merchants right here at its old port. Today, it is the second biggest city in France by population and an essential stop on any politician's campaign trail. Now, the hard-left candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon might well hope to do better here than in other parts of the country. In 2012, he scored 13% of the Marseillaise vote compared to 11% nationally. We asked some locals why they intend to vote for Jean-Luc Mélenchon on April 23rd.
For me, it's above all his stance towards NATO. He wants us to leave NATO, and he wants peace. That's important.
He's older and wiser nowadays. He's presidential. He seems like a head of state. And that is why I will be voting for him.
It's the people that are choosing. It's not the political parties anymore. It's the people. There are always lots of young people, and it's good to see. It's a citizens' revolution, but not with weapons, with words.
Well, Jean-Luc Mélenchon's political movement is called Unsubmissive France, but his team are also well aware of undecided France as well, with around a third of French voters still not sure who they're going to be casting their ballots for on April 23rd, plus a large proportion of people here in Marseille who traditionally don't turn out to vote at all. It certainly is all to play for.
All right, we had Catherine Nicholson. I'll start with you, Bruno Cotresse. They're talking about the regional context. It's a region where the far right does well.
Oh, yes.
And here she's talking about how Mélenchon fared better than he did nationally when he ran 5 years ago. Did you see this coming? He's had, what, a 3-point surge in many polls in just in the last week?
It's a phenomenon which, in terms of public opinion dynamics, is quite with no precedent. You cannot see in any other election before that one candidate is going to take 5-6 points like that in very few time. So there is clearly something which is happening nowadays with Jean-Luc Mélenchon campaign in France. It could be that it's because also Benoît Hamon campaign, which is in very much troubles, and also it's because Jean-Luc Mélenchon managed to reinvent Jean-Luc Mélenchon. It is no longer the same Mélenchon as we used to have in last election.
Yeah, not the same one. Sophie Rouser, 5 years ago, he had this sort of frown when we saw him at rallies, and Mélenchon was often very accusatory. He would hang journalists out to dry. This time, we saw in the debates, he was wry, smiling. Has he had a lot of media coaching? Or what's changed in Jean-Luc Mélenchon? Has he taken a happy pill?
No, it's very simple. He's taking 5 more years, and with that comes more experience, comes more sincerity when he can speak more fluently to such a big crowd as we have seen in Marseille. So it's not a media change. It's Jean-Luc Mélenchon being candidate as a president that can appeal to the whole French population. And this is why the way we are managing this campaign is absolutely different. We are not like making a coalition of different political parties backing us. We are making a grassroots movement. This is why you heard earlier this woman talking about the citizen revolution. This is a grassroots element.
Yeah, just explain that for our international viewers, because he has the communist backing. He comes from a party which is called the Party of the Left, but he's not running under that label. Why not?
Because we need to speak directly to the people currently. So we need to speak to all this disillusioned people that are angry with the current way the politics is done in France, especially under
Why couldn't he just use the name of his party?
Because if you do, we are seeing this with for example, Benoît Hamon and François Fillon currently. If you just do an addition of logos and a political party, people cannot feel that they belong to it anymore because they have been betrayed. This attitude and all the legal cases we are seeing is a proof of the lack of.
Does that mean his old party's dead, the Party of the Left, and that there's going to be a new party that'll come out of all of this?
No, it's not about party. This is my point. This is about launching a grassroots campaign where you can also revoke or remove from office the people that you vote for. These new elements are very necessary for our republic.
All right, the direct democracy side of it. Just again, to give a bit of context to all of this, France used to have, up until the late 80s, a thriving communist party. It sort of fizzled and died. Its voters went either to the far right or to the socialists. What do you make of this late surge by Jean-Luc Mélenchon?
Well, I think it's very impressive for all the reasons that have just been given by Bruno and Sophie. But I think he's also fought a good campaign. You know, in an election, campaigns matter. And he's an excellent orator. And that counts. He attracts people because people want to hear him speak. The Insoumis have also fought a really impressive campaign on the web. They have a kind of presence there, which is very impressive, very creative. Jean-Luc Mélenchon has found a way of going around the mainstream media, which is generally very hostile towards him. I mean, he sometimes, as you mentioned, has a go at them, they have a go at him. So there was a kind of bad dynamic there, which he's now kind of managed to
Okay, so he's got, for instance, his own YouTube channel, which is very successful.
He has his own YouTube channel.
But he has softened his tone.
He's softened his tone, and I think the most important thing there, and that goes back to the point about the communist tradition, is that he's picked up that element of the communist tradition which was anti-system, right? So he makes a lot of point about being an anti-system person, but it's a very reassuring form of being anti-system, because at the same time he cites de Gaulle, he cites Mitterrand on foreign policy. So it's a kind of anti-system figure who appears as somebody that you can trust, somebody familiar. rather than an anti-system which sounds adventurous or problematic. It's quite an interesting balance, delicate balance that you have to strike between the two. And it seems to me that the reason why he's coming through so strongly is that he's kind of struck that balance really quite well.
All right, one poll put Mélenchon ahead of conservative Fillon. But as we can surmise from this poll of polls that was collated by television station BFM, his advantage comes at the expense, as Bruno Cotresse was saying, of socialist Benoît Hamon. And with less than 2 weeks to go till the first round, there you see, what is it, 2 candidates on 24%. And 2 others on what roughly, there have been other polls out today that have Fillon slightly ahead of Mélenchon. They're very close. It's neck and neck. They're within the margin of error. Bertrand, I'm haunted by something that Sophie Rouser said a moment ago, which was that people rejecting political parties right now. They don't want people from political parties. As someone who's young, what do you think about defending a man who, won the nomination of his party the standard way? Regrets on that score that he wasn't perhaps outside of the party system as it is?
Well, if we look back in March 2016, François Fillon was 3rd or 4th in the polls, and I think he won the primary of the Right and Centre Party. He's a candidate for people who believe in the right and centre ideas, which I think people need to agree on. If you are from the right, you vote for François Fillon. If you are from the left or you believe in left ideas, you vote for who? Mélenchon, Emmanuel Macron, or Hamon. Well, there is only one choice if you are from the right, is François Fillon.
Who was the frontrunner until he was hampered by these corruption scandals. And
I'm sorry, but I think he's innocent until the justice decide if he is or not.
You think so, but in the court of public opinion, he seems to have taken quite a hit so far.
Well, if we continue to believe in the polls, public polls, François Fillon will not be running for president. And of course, people look on public polls, but if we look at filters, which analyze Facebook, what's going on social media, I think François Fillon is 2nd in the polls.
Could we still have more surprises, Bruno Cotresse, between now and election day? There's 2 weeks to go.
Yes, you can get obviously some few surprises still, because 2 weeks is long in politics, we know that. And so that election has one point which makes that election extremely particular, which is a high level of voters that are still not fixed in their choice. So broadly speaking, we could say that we've got still about 40% of the voters that say, I could eventually switch my vote. It depends on the different electorate. In the case of François Fillon and Marine Le Pen, they have quite stable electorates now. 80% of the Marine Le Pen voters say that they will not change, 70-75% for François Fillon. So I could say that they've got their grassroots, which are there, their basic voters are there. The level of uncertainty concerning in particular Emmanuel Macron and obviously Jean-Luc Mélenchon also. So it's going to depend on the mobilization of these voters, and also can François Fillon finally recover? For me, it's the big question mark of that election. Is the right-wing voters going to save François Fillon by saying, okay, whatever he done, okay, we want the program, we want the politics of François Fillon, despite everything that can be said on François Fillon. So we need just to recall that a few weeks ago, it was like if we don't need a presidential election at the end of the primary, it is like if François Fillon has won the election. So nowadays, it looks that he cannot even qualify for the second round. So is the right-wing electorate is going to be satisfied with that when they believed a few weeks ago that this election was for them?
Yes, there's apparently, so there's one point we all agree on around this table is like it's difficult to rely solely on polls. That's for sure. What we can feel and grasp here is the dynamic. Where is the dynamic? And a second point I also wanted to underline is like what is important in our movement is we are speaking to the French population as such. We do not claim, contrary to some over candidates, to be the candidate of the left wing or the candidate of the right wing. We are really trying here to make, this is why I'm using this expression of grassroots movement, but to talk to the whole French population and take the best out of the past also, and out of this vision of France and this know-how and what we can bring in terms of a brighter future for our country.
But that's the same rhetoric that Emmanuel Macron has been employing as a centrist, saying, well, let's forget the old notions of left and right, and let's pick the best ideas wherever they may be.
This is why he's a very fierce enemy to us, or not, I wouldn't say necessarily enemy, but what is interesting is that, on the contrary to Emmanuel Macron, our program is very clear. We started 1 year ago. We do not change it, and we don't say to people like, I agree with this and I agree with that. It's like white and black written on paper that we have a progressive program, that we don't do more austerity cuts of public spending and so on.
All right, France is a country where a presidential election in the runoff gets decided usually, the winner usually gets 52%, the loser 48%. The country's always split between left and right and all of this. What we've seen the last couple of weeks, and I want to ask you about this, Bruno Cotresse, is if you look at the pool of voters for both Mélenchon and the socialist nominee, Benoît Hamon, their numbers seem to have grown slightly. Where are they getting those votes?
So I would say that first, the left was quite weak, broadly speaking, in the country. Over the mandate of François Hollande, the left has lost most of the elections, the by-election, the municipal election, the European election. So broadly speaking, we are in a context where the left is weak, broadly speaking. But anyway, the country, as you said, is still divided between the left and the right. When some people claim that left and right is over, it's partly true. Left and right is still there, but in combination with the new dimension, which is the France pro-EU, pro-globalization versus anti. And we can see that election is going to be played in that field where we have two spaces, the left and the right, and also this new cleavage, which is anti and pro-globalization. If Marine Le Pen is opposed to Emmanuel Macron in the second round, it will be the victory of the second dimension. If it is François Fillon versus Emmanuel Macron, would be very interesting, by the way. It could be the return of the left and the right. So the left is not absolutely dead in that country, despite that the left was weak during the François Hollande mandate.
So do you agree that the new fault line is the European Union?
Well, it is in some sense, although it's complicated, because if you take what Marine Le Pen is saying about the European Union and you compare it with what Jean-Luc Mélenchon is saying about the European Union, they're saying rather different things. And I think if you think of the cleavage as not Europe versus anti-Europe, but rather optimistic and pessimistic, things come out slightly differently, I think. And I would put Emmanuel Macron and Jean-Luc Mélenchon, even though their programs are not the same on so many issues, in the camp of the optimists, actually, because they're voluntaristic, they're happy, they're talking about offering a vision of the future. I mean, you may kind of not agree with it, but they're kind of forward-looking. And I think the perception out there is that candidates like François Fillon and certainly Marine Le Pen are offering a slightly more closed, more pessimistic vision. I mean, Fillon often says, we live beyond our means, we need to cut public expenditure, we need to be much more rigorous. There doesn't seem to be a kind of strong vision that he offers, and I think that's maybe one of the reasons why his
we're going to get more clues to what vision the French want when we come back. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.